are a few thoroughbreds in the world who can win 4 Group 1 races, particularly in breed-shaping events such as the Queen Anne and the Loch Inge. Ribchester, a magnificent son of Ifraj, is one of that select group, and he's coming to Darley Stud's Hunter Valley base this spring.
Ribchester and William Buick are the Queen Anne winners.
A second Royal Ascot win now for Ribchester. He is the star. But to be honest, to my mind, the best horse has won. He was in front a lot longer than the rest were.
Alistair, it's always exciting to have a new stallion, and you'd have to say Ribchester is probably one of the best credentialed stallions standing in Australia, winner of 4 Group 1s.
Absolutely. Just the fact he was a superstar racehorse in England, champion miler twice, and as you said, 4 Group 1s. That's more than any other horse that's retiring to stud in Australia this year.
Well, he's just a beautiful looking horse, isn't he? I mean, we know the deeds of Ifraj, Ginger Nuts, John Snow, those sorts of horses, but Ifraj himself is a gorgeous looking horse, and he's thrown so much of that into Ribchester.
Absolutely. That whole sire line is very good looking. Ifraj is a beautiful looking horse. You've seen him yourself, I believe. He's a fantastic, big, masculine horse with a great head, and that's what Ribchester is too. He's a lovely. He stand out in a weight for age race. Yeah, that's the sort of horse he is.
Behind those we've got Vademos and Ribchester settled behind that group in the Godolphin blue.
And I guess looking back at his replays, you know, you look at the Prix Jacques Lemoyrois, the mile race, the Group 1 in France. He sort of gradually moved up to them, but he really fought to beat Vademos, didn't he? He has that real fight in him.
Absolutely. Look, he was a weight for age horse for his career. Yeah, he had 10 starts in Group 1 company. He started favourite on a number of occasions. I think most of the time he was favourite because he was so good, and he did have a great fighting spirit about him.
It's Ribchester in front. Tariff's getting close to the outside.
And you look at the Prix de Moulin de Longchamp, another mile Group 1, of course, and he was just under a hold up the rise there, but he just responded to the riding. He again, just has that desire to win, which I guess is something you want in a stallion, to put a will to win into their offspring.
Yeah, well, you think about horses like Lonhro, and that's what he did too. So, yeah, it's a quality look for, you know, genuineness, gameness, you know, those tough fighting qualities.
Okay. And then the Loch Inge, of course, at Newbury. He beat the 2000 Guineas winner, Galileo Gold, and again a really tough race, but he sort of again actually pulled away on the line.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that was the mark of him. He was a horse that kept giving.
He's obviously then gone to the Queen Anne, and I mean that time for the mile was just sensational.
It's a highlight race on the first day, first race on the card. It's a very big occasion. It's an occasion where temperament comes through because it's, there's all sorts of going on at Royal Ascot, as you'd know. And to run that time, they've been racing there a long time. It was a quick ground that suits Australia, and you know, the record speaks for itself.
I guess that's the big thing, isn't it? Finding these stallions that will suit Australia. So obviously, you know, going well on firm ground and fast times. What else do you think makes him suited to standing in the Hunter Valley?
Well, his sire's been a great success standing in New Zealand, but his sire, top-class winners in Australia as well as New Zealand and all over the world. But this horse reminds me a bit of Shamadal, you know, 4-time Group 1 he was too, and one of those genuine top-class European horses. Teofilo, the shuttle horses, you know, if you want those weight for age horses, the horses like Winks, like Happy Clapper, like Humidor, those are the horses you have to turn to, you know, the 2,000 metre, 1,600 metre, you know, those good high-class horses that will throw you a weight for age performer. And
well, those horses, you're talking about Street Cry, aren't you? And you know, Kermadec, Teofilo, of course. So they're all stallions that have really worked for you in the past here.
Absolutely, and that's what we look for in Ribchester. You know, that's why we were so keen to get him to stud here, because he's very much in profile like a horse like Shamadal.
And as a 2-year-old too. I mean, that's another thing that in Australia we're really looking at. His you know, his feats as a young horse.
Yeah, I mean, he only had a few starts as a 2-year-old, but that was when he sort of identified himself to the Godolphin team, so they bought into him after he'd finished in the, second in the Gimcrack Stakes. He won a Group 2 for us the next start, so he was a high-class 2-year-old as well as going on to be a champion 3- and 4-year-old miler.
And, you know, we're always looking for horses that will work. We have so much Danehill blood in Australia, and he really fits the bill.
Yeah, well, his sire, Ifraj, has really worked well with Danehill. Look, he's got a pedigree that's just made for Danehill, and a physique, because he's got that size and scope. He's going to suit so many of the Danehill line mares. You know, not a single dart, Schnitzels, all those sorts of mares, they're going to love him.
Ribchester arrived in Kildangan straight from his efforts in the Breeders' Cup in Del Mar, and it was a hard trip on a horse. He came back, he looked a little bit light, but he's let down fantastic. He's got big and powerful. He's got a really athletic walk, and he's a big, powerful stallion now. He's let down really well, and we're very pleased with how he's done for us.
And some of your Australian team have actually been and seen him. What was their report back on Ribchester? Obviously, he's now standing his first season in the Northern Hemisphere.
He's letting down extremely well. He is a magnificent, imposing horse. Andy Makiv and Adam Brayshaw went over and looked at him back in March, and they came back with the thought that they loved him physically. They said he's the sort of horse you'd expect to see in the paddock before the McKinnon Stakes and the Cox Plate. That's the sort of horse he is.
We had a fantastic reaction to Ribchester this season. He's such a big, powerful, imposing horse. The breeders have supported him with some lovely mares, and he's had a great chance of stud. He's been really busy. His fertility has been exceptional, so he's going to have a lot of foals in the ground next year, and it's going to be a very exciting time for Ribchester.
He's getting mares in foal. He's got a big book in Ireland. He's extremely popular, as you'd imagine, because he was one of the very best horses that raced there in the last couple of years. So he's been extremely well received over there, and yeah, he's covering a big book and he's getting them in foal.
Two very important men in the Ribchester career, Peter Fahey and Mouse O'Ryan, came and saw him recently, and they were very impressed by him. And Peter was very impressed by him. He couldn't believe how well he'd done. They sent him in fantastic shape, but he'd let down so well. I think Peter was impressed, and he was just talking about his traits and training and how relaxed a horse he was, and how he stood at the top of the riding ring every morning and looked down and waited for everything to come out of Richards, and he led him out across the gallop. So he sounded like he was a dream to train, and Mouse they were both very complimentary about how he looked.
How is he tracking at the moment? I mean, obviously we're a fair way out from the season, but mare owners, they're making their decisions now, aren't they?
Anyone who follows European racing is straight in, and yeah, he's going to be a very popular horse.
So when does he get here? When can people first, other than on Bred to Win, when can they first have a look at him?
They'll get to look at him in August. The horses arrive right at the end of July and then quarantine for a couple of weeks, so from mid-August onwards.